This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called to be. The task is mighty, and so are we. The task is mighty, and so are we. The task is mighty, and so are we. This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called to be. The land is holy, and so are we. The land is holy, and so are we. The land is holy, and so are we. This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called to be. The world is ready, and so are we. The world is ready, and so are we. The world is ready, and so are we. This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called to be. The tide is rising, and so are we. The tide is rising, and so are we. The tide is rising, and so are we. This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called to be.
Welcome. Thanks everyone so much for being here with us. I am Corey, and I'm going to stop sharing for just a moment so I can see you all and say hi. I see the chat is already getting some use. Yeah, thanks for that note, Valerie. I got a note from Valerie that maybe I need to turn off presenter. Anybody know? Apparently Zach and I were on the screen. I'm not sure where to go. If you know, Valerie. Let me know how I can fix that. So welcome. We want to give everybody a chance to say hi and to first tell us where you're coming from and how was your week on a scale from 1 to 10. That's what we start out sharing. So in the chat, I'm going to try this again and see if I get it right here. Where are you coming from and how was your week? Share with us so we can get to know each other in that way. And as you do that, I will share with you that at Church in the Wild here, we are all about following the Spirit through creation, adventure, and restoration. So if you are interested in that, want to know more, want to be a part of our group, you are welcome here. There's nothing you need to say or do or anything specific you must believe like someone else. We're all here figuring it out together and following that incredible wild spirit. So thanks for being here. Thanks for checking in. I want to just check really quick to make sure you're seeing. Are you seeing a screen that says, where are you from, and share how your week was? Okay. Are you also seeing me and Zach? Some people are, some people aren't. Interesting. All right, well.
You might have to pin you and Zach so we can see you. Are you trying at the same time?
Well, it sounds like if you're seeing Zach and I, are we covering part of the screen?
No, your screen is shared fine. Like if some people have side-by-side gallery and the presenter screen, we can see you, but we can't see you on the screen you're sharing.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's view settings for the viewers, not so much you, Corey. I think you're good.
Okay. All right. Well, okay. Screen looks good. All right. We will continue on. Thanks for checking in. Feel free to explain your number for the week or just put a number. But I think it's nice to sort of check in with yourself too and say, how has my week been? So as we get started, if you aren't on our email list, we try to send an email out on Wednesdays with information about our worship topic. So if you're not on that list, if you didn't get an email this Wednesday, feel free to just fill out the quick form that Zach is going to link in the chat. And Zach is doing that because he is our virtual greeter, our Zoom host for the week. We have a couple of great volunteers who are swapping in that role, and Zach's up this week. So if there's an issue or a question, you can directly message him. And you can choose that at the bottom where it says to in the chat. You can choose the drop-down menu to everyone or just one person in particular. So let him know if there's any issues. And we also have a link to support us with a donation. We switched recently to a new online giving platform called Fundraise. And we had lots of folks make the switch from their automatic donation they had set up with our old one. They made the switch, but you can also do a one-time donation. We actually haven't had any one-time donations yet on our new platform. So you can support us and the work we're doing as we follow the Spirit through creation, adventure, and restoration. And help us to continue to deepen our roots as we are just over 6 months old as a spiritual community. We're going through our first winter together. And so this is a tenuous point in the life of our group, but it's such a thrill to have so many new folks every week being able to join us from afar during this winter on Zoom that we're having. So thanks for joining us from afar, those of you who are with us for the first time. So we're going to dive right in with our first reading, which comes from Rachel Carson, The Sense of Wonder. A child's world is fresh and new and beautiful, full of wonder and excitement. It is our misfortune that for most of us, that clear-eyed vision, that true instinct for what is beautiful and awe-inspiring is dimmed and even lost before we reach adulthood. If I had influence with the good fairy who is supposed to preside over the christening of all children, I should ask that her gift to each child in the world be a sense of wonder so indestructible that it would last throughout life as an unfailing antidote against the boredom and disenchantment of later years, the alienation from the sources of our strength. If a child is to keep alive their inborn sense of wonder, they need the companionship of at least one adult who can share it, rediscovering with them the joy, excitement, and mystery of the world we live in.
He was born in the summer of 2017, coming home to a place he'd never been before. He left yesterday behind him. They say he was born again. They say he found a key for every door. When he first came to the mountains, his life was far away, on the road and hanging by the phone. But the string's already broken, he doesn't really care. It keeps changing fast, but it doesn't last for long. But Colorado, Rocky Mountains high, I've seen it rain and fire in the sky. Shadows from the starlight, it's softer than a lullaby. Rocky Mountain high, Colorado. Rocky Mountain high, Colorado. He climbed Cathedral Mountain, saw silver clouds below. He saw everything as far as you can see. And they say he got crazy once. He tried to touch the sun. He lost a friend, but he kept the memories. Now he walks in quiet solitude, the forest and the streams, seeking grace in every single step he takes. His sight has turned inside himself to try and understand the serenity of a clear blue mountain lake. In the Colorado Rocky Mountain high, I've seen it rain and fire in the sky. Talk to God and listen to a casual reply. Rocky Mountain high, Colorado. Rocky Mountain high, Colorado. Now his life is full of wonder, but his heart's engulfed in fear of the simple things he cannot comprehend. Why they try to tear the mountains down to bring a couple more people, more scars upon the land. But the Colorado Rocky Mountain high, I've seen it rain and fire in the sky. I know he'd be a poor man, he'd never saw an eagle fly.
Thank you so much, Kristen. Always a gift.
Thank you.
So our wisdom for this Sunday comes from Thinking Like a Mountain, a Sand County Almanac by Aldo Leopold. We reached the old wolf in time to watch a fierce green fire dying in her eyes. I realized then, and have known ever since, that there was something new to me in those eyes, something known only to her and to the mountain. I was young then and full of trigger itch. I thought that because fewer wolves meant more deer, that no wolves would mean hunter's paradise. But after seeing the green fire die, I sensed that neither the wolf nor the mountain agreed with such a view. I now suspect that just as a deer herd lives in mortal fear of its wolves, so does a mountain live in mortal fear of its deer. And perhaps with better cause, for while a buck pulled down by wolves can be replaced in 2 or 3 years, a range pulled down by too many deer may fail of replacement in as many decades. So also with cows. The cowman who cleans his range of wolves does not realize that he is taking over the wolf's job of trimming the herd to fit the range. He has not learned to think like a mountain. Hence, we have dust bowls and rivers washing the future into the sea. Amazing readings chosen for us this week from Cam, our guest speaker. But first, let's hear from Rich, who has a part video and part speaking with us live. So video first, Rich.
Yes. So Dovey and I greet you. It's good to see everybody here today for Church in the Wild. And I just want to recognize a truth that I think we all know so well. Diversity is the spice of life. And I can think of no better way than to appreciate that truth than by taking note of, Dovey, I'm talking, by taking note of the dynamics of mixed winter flocks of songbirds. At the heart of it all, usually, almost always, is the delightful chickadee. And so with that, I present a video that I put together last year, but I think bears repeating. Enjoy. Hi, my name is Rich Hanlon, and I welcome you to this nature moment. Winter is hard times, and perhaps that's especially true this year. How much snow did you shovel last week? I shoveled about 3.5 feet of it where I live. And winter is even harder for the birds, for little birds. They've got to keep up that metabolism to stay alive. With little hearts beating at 500 beats per minute, can you imagine? Birds like chickadees have to eat nearly half of their body weight in seeds every day during the winter. You've heard it said that birds of a feather flock together, and this is true. What's also true is that in nature, there is strength in diversity. I'd like to share with you today 3 birdie personalities that are likely to be found in mixed flocks at winter feeding stations. Now, the first birdie personality is that of the fearless leader. Who is the first bird to show up at winter feeding stations? That's right, the Black Cap Chickadee. And that's the song of the Black Cap Chickadee. What we may be more familiar with is the call of the Black Cap Chickadee that sounds like chickadee dee 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 dee, or just chickadee, or just chickadee dee. You get the picture. The chickadee, with its diminutive size, they're actually smaller than this toy chickadee. They're with their diminutive size, black and white color pattern, and very bold and confident and inquisitive behavior, is the fearless leader who's always at the core of mixed winter flocks. If the chickadee had a theme song in relation to other birds in mixed winter flocks, it might be a line from this Uncle Kracker song from 2001.
I'm singing, follow me, everything is alright.
All of the other bird species that join mixed winter flocks, and there are many, might be singing to the chickadees something like this song from Whoopi Goldberg's choir from Sister Act.
I will follow him wherever he may go.
Bottom
Do you have any more to add to that?
Oh, no, that was everything. Just, yeah, mixed winter flocks. They're an amazing gift to.
The audio stopped
to
working
experience
partway
nature.
through.
It's okay. It got the whole Whoopi Goldberg song, but then it cut off audio after that, but that's all right. There was only about 10 seconds left. So. Yeah, so that worked out fine. And as I bring this nature connection time to a close, I'm looking at somebody with a big beard. Tom, is it Stonehenge? Is that Stonehenge, Tom?
That is a picture. It's not an actual background. It's just my screen background.
I'm digging the virtual background. So wherever you are, I'm sure there's mixed winter flocks not too far away. So maybe you'll think of Whoopi Goldberg and Uncle Kracker the next time you see a mixed winter flock of birds, and chickadee is the one everybody's following. So, and if you would like to check out any of my other videos, I will make sure I put a link to my website, Wild Neighbors Nature Connection, in the chat box. If you go to that website, click the link to the blog and then click videos, there's plenty more to share. So with that, I will pass it off to, am I passing it off to Cameron now?
Yeah, let me introduce our guest speaker. Thanks so much, Rich, as always. We've been doing a series for January I've been calling Fresh Perspectives, which we've just been hearing from a bunch of folks who aren't me, which has been fantastic because we can hear from people all over the globe. And this week, one of our dedicated members, our Sunday Saunter guide, who leads us through the nature preserve every week during the winter months, and Binghamton University graduate biology student, Cam, is going to give us, I dubbed it a queer biologist's perspective of God, because I think that sounds really intriguing and I want to know more. So I'm turning it over to you, Cam.
Hello, thank you for the wonderful introduction, Corey. And thank you everyone for allowing me to come talk to you guys. When Corey asked if I knew anyone who would come talk, my friend Carmelo, who spoke to us last week, immediately came to mind. And then Corey asked if I would be interested in giving one, and I figured, why not? So today I'm going to be talking about, like Corey said, my perspective on God, and to provide some background on where all this is coming from. I'm going to talk about my relationship with religion and spirituality a bit, my relationship with it in the context of a scientist, and then the opinions I hold now. So to preface, this talk is entirely about my own experience, my own journeys. In no way am I trying to undermine your own beliefs or your own journeys. In fact, I think the best way to change my points of view and learn more is by discussing my journey and hearing about others. So I would love to hear about yours as well after worship during our little coffee chat after, if anyone wants to stick around. But to provide some perspective and context on how I got to where I am now, Being a queer person growing up in a not so great split family environment with vastly different cultural and religious backgrounds on either side, my relationship with religion and spirituality has ebbed and flowed a lot in my life, and I anticipate it to continue to do so as long as I'm still around. So both sides of my family are polar opposites in almost every way imaginable. My dad's side is cold-blooded, maybe not cold-blooded, like red, white, and blue, super, super patriotic military family. My grandfather is a general in the army. Everyone is really Republican, really conservative, which is totally fine, but just very different from my mother's side of the family. My mom's side, on the other hand, immigrated to this country from Iran following the Iranian Revolution in the late 70s, early 80s. My grandfather on that side was actually also in the military. He was one of the head fighter pilots of the last Shah. And my grandmother, a direct lineage of the Qajar dynasty, whose reign ended in about the 1920s. So my mother and her family lived in a palace in Iran, and in the span of just 20 years, they lost essentially all of their worldly possessions and came to this country as refugees because they ran out of the country which they had called home. But the one aspect that both sides of my family seem to agree on, despite all their differences, is their relationship with their respective religions. My father's side is Catholic, my great aunt actually being an extremely active member in the Opus Dei sect, which, if you're not familiar, is probably the most conservative sect of Catholicism. And then my mother's side, unsurprisingly, is Islamic. So I've always been surrounded by these different points of view and different perspectives in terms of religion and spirituality. But I never quite understood why everyone in my family seems to be so religious, because a lot of the stuff they do doesn't necessarily align with their religions. They drink, they gamble, they eat meat on religious days, but yet when it came to me, a lot of things were imposed on me and the religions were cited. I never fit into the expectations imposed on me by these religions. I've always been innately feminine. I've always gravitated towards girly things. And I always struggled with the idea that some things seemed to be okay that they were doing, but then the things that I wanted to do weren't. But amongst all this internal struggle, I always had the natural world to turn to. The natural world was always my escape. I would spend countless hours, days outside. My grandmothers especially, they noticed that I had this innate passion for the world around me, and they did everything they could to immerse me in it. They would buy me bird feeders, they would buy me ID guides, they would teach me how to garden and to forage and to cook with the food that we grew and that we found outside. And these two women are incredibly special to me and have helped form much of my relationship with the natural world and then God and religion and spirituality by extension. But eventually I got to this point in my life where there was two roads in front of me. One where I either conformed to the expectations set out before me by my family, or one where I could listen to myself and who I knew I was. And I'm very thankful that I decided to go that route. So in middle and high school, I came out as gay to mixed reactions from much of my family. Thankfully, none of them were super brutal, but I won't get into that here. But what I will say is some of these reactions led me to reject religion and spirituality entirely for some part of my life, because I had no interest in being aligned with something that appeared to disagree with who I was as a person. I know now that that's horribly misconstrued from the teachings of these religions, but I'll get to that in a second. Needless to say, that was a very difficult time in my life. I was 14, I was figuring out who I was, but I also had to battle the world around me who was telling me that who I knew I was wasn't okay, especially some of the people who were closest to me. But nonetheless, I still had the natural world to turn to. I always found solace and love in being outside. I also felt this sort of indescribable interconnectedness while I was outside. I didn't know how to describe it at the time, but I knew that I felt very much a part of the world around me, just as much as everything I was seeing was a part of that same thing. Now, as a biologist by trade and passion, I have an undergraduate degree in environmental science, and I'm going for a graduate degree in biology. I have words to be able to explain that interconnectedness in a very objective, scientific way. I'm a community ecologist by trade, so it's what I study, partly because it's what I've always been so fascinated by. But more recently, I wanted to get back into spirituality because I had rejected religion for reasons I mentioned before. but I still felt like there was something more than just the objective science that I was learning. There was something more personal to me that I couldn't quantify in a scientific way. So I turned to different articles and different books that described religion and spirituality. I noticed a lot of common trends, especially in the most commonly practiced religions that today, like the Abrahamic ones, Islam, Christianity, Judaism. Humans are often noted as protectors of the environment and the natural world because it was a gift given to us by some divine force. But then you also have countless indigenous and native cultures, which also cite us as protectors of the natural world, but not because we're protecting a gift which was given to us. Because protecting the natural world inherently means protecting us. And that latter part is what I agree with most, and is largely how I view my place as a spiritual being on this planet. But this has led to many, many uncomfortable conversations with the same family members who had some issues with my lifestyle choices because that didn't align with their view of God. And it also led to a lot of uncomfortable conversations in my peers in the sciences, because to them, that wasn't objective fact. That couldn't be proven. Many of the people in my program, my professors, a lot of them consider themselves atheists, which is totally fine. I completely understand why, and I'm not knocking them for it. But to them, we live, we die, we are recycled, which is something that I find to be incredibly spiritual in ways that I don't think that they yet recognize. But one conversation with my mom on the way back up to Binghamton on Route 17 always sticks out in my mind when I think about my idea of God, because she had asked me where I was at, because she knew I wasn't necessarily religious, but she knew I was getting back into the ideas of spirituality. And we were talking about a mountain that we happened to be driving past. And my mother said, you look at that mountain and you think that that wasn't just put there. It's so massive and so beautiful. Someone had to have created it. And I took a moment to think, and I said, I can explain to you in a very objective and scientific way how that mountain wasn't always there, why it is here now, and why it will not always be there. But I don't think that makes it any less divine or godly. She kind of was stumped by this idea because it was the first time that I had challenged her perception of God in the way that she had always challenged mine. But anyway, the conversation kind of fizzled out after that because I think that she didn't like where it was going. But that was the ride where my idea of God was really, really solidified. I don't think God is some all-knowing being who judges us for our right or wrong doings. And I don't think God created the world around us as a gift to us. The closest thing that I can understand God to be is the natural process of life itself. In this sense, God is not a being, but a never-ending cycle, and one that I think we are undeniably a part of, just as everyone in the Zoom call is, just as all of the plants and animals that share this world are, just as everything that has lived and ever lived is. I think that idea challenges both science and religion, as many of us know how to understand them. From a scientific perspective, everything that we learn and are taught to know is based on objective fact, research, quantitative numbers. So saying that there might be a spiritual side to it, I think is a little uncomfortable for some scientists, just because it challenges everything that they were trained to know and believe. In a somewhat ironic way, I think this is also why religion historically has rejected sciences. And there are two different things that I wanted to talk about here to kind of put that into perspective for everyone. So the idea of reincarnation is cited in a lot of religions, and a lot of scientists say, no, that's not true. We die and we're recycled. But to me, the whole process of biological recycling is a never-ending form of reincarnation in the purest sense of the definition. So regardless of how spiritual you want to get about it, to me, at least, that is, you're talking about the same exact thing, but from two different points of view. So I just think it's funny that everyone seems to be arguing about it when I think they're all saying the same thing anyway. You also see this in the debate of creationism versus evolution. A lot of religious institutions, at least historically, rejected the idea of evolution because it goes against the idea that God made man. But in the sense that God is, at least the way that I look at it, God is this never-ending cycle. We were created by it in that way. The cycle itself, evolution is a part of. So again, I think that they're just talking about the same points from completely different perspectives. And I understand that this can be really hard to wrap your head around. I myself find I poke holes in my own ideas all the time. But I think the constant challenging of what I think is part of the beauty and the magic of it. And that's why I love talking about it with people. And I love hearing their points of view, because it allows me to think about it in ways that I wouldn't be able to otherwise. And if there's one thing I have learned as an ecologist and also as just a spiritual person, is that nothing is ever black and white. And many things can be true at the same time when talking about the same topic. And I don't think that that means there isn't value in any sides that are being presented, but I don't think that that one point of view should diminish another, even if it's different. And even if these answers may appear contradictory, I still think that the value is inherent. And I also think a lot of these contradictions are tied up in the language that we use, but that's a different conversation that I won't get into here. But none of this is to say that there isn't value in traditional religious institutions. I'm almost done. I wanted to just touch on that, because I think religious institutions are an incredible place for people without a spiritual home to find one. I think that's why so many people in my family cling to the religion they were brought up in, despite the fact that many of their lifestyle choices do not align with what the religions teach. I feel incredibly lucky to have found a spiritual home such as this one that allows me to talk about things like this. And I hope everyone else feels the same way. Just as the natural cycle of things, God, if you will, is ever changing and malleable, I firmly believe that we are too. Part of this means listening to the points of view of others, accepting them even if they're not the same as your own, and learning what you can along the way. With that being said, I hope you enjoyed listening to me ramble about my points of view and things like that. I would love to hear about your own, either after worship today or at some point in the near future. And like I said, I'm so grateful that I was able to come do this. Thank you for inviting me, Corey, and thank you everyone for listening. That's it.
Thank you so much, Zach. Zach, I was just looking at Zach's name. Cam. Thank you so much, Cam. What an incredible bunch of wisdom and knowledge for us to chew on. And as Cam said, we will have a time after worship to chat. We can unmute and catch up if you're able to stick around. So please do that. Yes, definitely brilliant. Just wanted to give everybody a heads up. We did have a fifth guest speaker who was scheduled to be with us next Sunday. However, they've had a death in their family. So they are rescheduling for February 13th, which is perfect. It is the day before Valentine's Day. And the guest speaker is Jay Sylvan, who is the author, composer, playwright of a gay Bible musical based on Jonathan and David. So it'll be a perfect time to have them join us just before Valentine's Day. So sorry to disappoint, but it will be me speaking next week, and we'll hear from Jay in February. Now comes a time for us all to take in everything that Cam shared, thank you, and to do some meditating guided by Valerie. I'll share my screen and hand it over to you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Valerie, and inspired by our meeting as the board of this community and by Kristen's lovely rendition of John Denver's song, and also by our fabulous guest speaker, Cam, I feel called to lead us in a time we might call prayer rather than meditation. Those two words, prayer and meditation, have different meanings in different contexts and in different traditions and among different individuals. For me, I think that I would reserve the word prayer for specifically for quiet times when we're in conversation with the Spirit. And that might be, like John Denver said, to talk to God and listen to the casual reply, or it might be, as Cam graciously invited us into conversation with each other about our faith and our meaning making. So I invite you to close your eyes first and take a moment to settle into your body for this time, quiet time together. Notice how your body feels at this moment. And to settle into your heart in your own way. I invite you to take a few deep breaths, noticing the rising and falling of your chest, where your heart resides. Wild Spirit, thank you for this time to be together in community, coming together from many different places, many different physical places that hold us and care for us, and from many different spiritual places. We thank you that you've brought us together on this journey. And we thank you for giving us the chance now to silently offer our joys and concerns, to put them in words in our hearts and offer them up. Those moments that have made us feel the most alive, and our deepest worries that we can't carry on our own. Thank you for this time to articulate them now to you. We're grateful for our hearts and minds and bodies that allow us to enjoy and to love and to wonder. And we'll close this conversation with the Spirit, asking for help and support as we continue on our journey together. May it be so.
May it be so. Thank you, Valerie. We want to take a moment to share together what we are thankful for. So feel free in the chat to share, or feel free not to share, but just to take a moment to consider, what are you particularly grateful for today? I'm so thankful for all of our guest speakers. Maureen was one of our first who's joined us again this week. Thank you. And looking forward to having one more join us in February. Oh, I love the variation, the snow falling outside of the window and a garden. I love that we get that from all over. Thank you all for being a part of our, I usually call it a worship circle, because when we meet in person, we are always in a circle, but it's still a circle. Even from all points across the map, we form some sacred space, and it's special and unique every week based on the people who are here. So yeah, Russ, I agree. I'm grateful for you all as well. And a warm home and the warmth of the love of the Spirit that we share together. We're excited to be looking forward to some fun things. We're going to have our monthly new moon meditation, February 1st, which is coming right up here. It's hard to believe we're already at the end of February or January. So February 1st, 8 p.m. Eastern, same Zoom link. We do a wonderful guided meditation from Valerie every new moon. And then looking forward, we just set the date of the first Sunday in February for a sledding party. For those who are local, we'll be at Shenango Valley State Park. We'll get the exact location of the sledding hill, but we'll be there at noon on the first Sunday in February. So we won't be sauntering at the nature preserve that week. We'll be sledding. We also take some time now to set an intention for our week ahead. And to me, this is a key part of why we gather, to be changed in some way or to work towards something better. Much as Cam was talking about, we want to keep growing, keep on the journey of our spiritual life. So how do you want to live this week? A word or a phrase that you'll use maybe to guide you. Some weeks I really use it like a mantra and repeat it to myself. sometimes it's nice just to think of something to guide you. So feel free to share that in the chat. Patience. You're brave to pick that one, Cam, because you might get lots of opportunities for it.
Not looking for all of my students.
Oh yeah,
all
classes
the
start back
questions,
up.
but it's fine.
Lovely, joyful and centered, appreciation for the ordinary, awake. Ooh. Step by step, yes, these are all so good. Well, feel free to keep considering this. I think I'm gonna borrow step by step too. Keep considering, feel free to keep adding it in the chat. We will have our closing song to share here together, and then stick around to chat more if you are able to and would like.
All right, it's time for our last song for worship today. Again, if you have an instrument hanging around, whether that's a shaker, your knees, or an instrument that you like to play in the key of C, feel free to join us for our final song, Peace, Salam, Shalom.